Welcome to Cowgirl Talk, where we empower you to live authentically through real food, real talk, and real life. Sisters brought together by our love of cows. We're your host, Emily, a dairy lover and personal trainer living in Florida.
And Becca, a corporate cowgirl holding down the family fort in Pennsylvania. Let's go, cowgirls!
Today to Cowgirl Talk, we are welcoming two amazing ladies, Amanda Borkowski and Katelin Benkoski. And we were just talking about how similar these last names are and also how unique they are. So I did just confirm I was going to pronounce them correctly. So welcome to Cowgirl Talk, ladies.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yay, we're so excited. And we're really excited for this conversation, as we are with every single person that comes on to Cowgirl Talk. But as we are all women in agriculture, more specifically in dairy, we wanted to talk a little bit more about how we've really created impactful and meaningful relationships in this industry. And I think, again, that this will be a really fun conversation is because, of course, Becca and I are related, right? So we knew each other from the get-go. But for the rest of us, we all got to meet each other through the power of events and networking within dairy. And so I think we'll all be able to share a lot of really insightful tips, hopefully. And networking and relationships, of course, we know that they're going to be crucial in every industry, but we know that within agriculture and dairy, those things are often putting a lot of us within more rural areas or careers that can sometimes lead to us feeling a little bit more isolated or alone. And with that, agriculture is already such a small number of the population. And then when you look at women in ag, of course, that again becomes even smaller. And so I do think that I think we can all agree with this, that there is just so much power in community and really being able to share ideas and relate to others. And more than anything, being surrounded by like-minded women, which is really what Cowgirl Talk is all about, among many other things. And so today, we're going to be diving into some of our own stories, experiences, advice for connecting with other uplifting and empowering women. So hopefully all of y'all can walk away from this feeling like, oh, I'm so ready to go. I'm so ready to make besties with people and really create a circle that allows you to live a very, fulfilled life. And so before I continue to talk anymore, we of course would love to get a quick introduction and a little bit of a background from our ladies. So ladies, we would love to hear just a little bit more about you and even maybe your connection to agriculture and whether that was if you grew up in it or if you kind of, found yourself in it later in life. So Amanda, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, I'm just so excited to be here. I'm Amanda Borkowski, like Em said. I live in Wisconsin. My story in ag is a bit different, I think, than a lot because I didn't grow up in agriculture. I grew up in a rural community, but like no direct ties to ag whatsoever. I had a friend that like had a couple cows, but that was the extent of it. I didn't go over there as often as like looking back now, I really think I would have loved to.
Mm-hmm.
But in very Wisconsin fashion, I actually grew up on a tavern that my mom and dad owned. So I grew up at a bar, which it doesn't get more Wisconsin than that, I don't think. But since I was young, I'd always loved animals, and I always dreamed of being a veterinarian. So in high school, my counselor, really pushed me to declare animal science when I went to UW-Madison. And so I kind of just blindly did. That's on me. So I didn't really look into what that was and just assumed it was like, some type of glorified biology or something. Until I went the summer before classes started and signed up and saw like Dairy Science 101 was a class I was going to take and like poultry science and things like that. And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. I don't know anything about that. And so fast forward to my freshman year at Madison and realized all of my classes were agriculture classes. With that, it really just opened a door. I, first of all, was like, wow, I had no idea this community existed. And secondly, I was like, wow, I don't know anything about this. And that honestly excited me and pushed me to continue to pursue it instead of scare me away somehow. But after a while, I came to the conclusion that being a veterinarian just was not the lifestyle and maybe the career I actually truly wanted, but had really found a home in agriculture through the animal science degree and specifically dairy. I just naturally filtered that way. So I spent the next couple of years trying to find out like where my place was. So I did a bunch of different internships from marketing to working in a dairy cattle nutrition research lab, writing for a couple of like national dairy publications, working for an implement company, bing bang boom. Definitely found that my home was in the marketing communications side. Um, did work on some farms too, so I had some actual hands-on experience and actually understood how dairy farming worked. And I'll probably end up telling the story about this a little later, but ended up finding my home working with Dairy Girl Network and then doing some freelance agriculture marketing on the side as well. So I also do work for GPS Dairy Consulting.
My gosh, so many awesome things. I feel like you have more experience than many people who grew up and were born into agriculture. I feel like you kind of finding your way into it, you found every experience possible to really find out what you like.
Yeah, I really did push myself. But also a really important piece of this that I almost forgot was the community I built in college. I was a little worried in the beginning that, I was in these classes with these dairy farmers who grew up dairying, their family's been dairying for generations. And here I am, like a little, like, kind of city kid, I guess, and didn't know anything. And honestly, everybody took me in with open arms and, like, helped push me in different directions to learn what, like, animal science and dairy science actually could do. And so that community and my friends that I made also helped me be like, hey, have you thought about trying this? Or have you thought about doing that? So they really helped me, like, find all of those experiences too.
That's awesome. And I think what is so cool about this group is that we all have such unique experiences within agriculture, more specifically in dairy. And I think it's going to be really fun to learn how we've all created our different types of community to lead us to where we've been. And I know, well, you kind of found yourself into agriculture and more so dairy a little bit later in life. I know, Caitlin, you had a little bit of an opposite experience. And so we would love to hear a little bit more about you.
Well, it's definitely an opposite experience and an opposite end of the country for sure.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, listen to the accents, y'all. We got Wisconsin,
For sure.
and we got Georgia.
We've got
Very
egg and
different.
we've got Georgia.
so my name is Katelin Benkoski, and I am from Madison, Georgia. My family has a dairy farm here. We're a small dairy farm, especially in Georgia. We milk about 70 head of dairy cattle, and we do a lot with agritourism. So we have, I think, 13 or 1400 kids booked to come in the month of October to see our farm and
Wow.
our
Oh my
pumpkin patch.
gosh.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a little scared. It's fine.
Holy cow,
It's a
that's
lot.
amazing.
Yep, so we do tours like that. So I grew up doing advocacy a little bit in that kind of way and doing the dairy thing. I grew up showing dairy cattle, did dairy quiz bowl, dairy judging, all the things that said dairy in front of it. I pretty well did as a kid. So through 4-H and FFA, I kind of found my way to various ag programs. A lot of times we're a small family farm as well. So if there were local producer meetings or extension programs going on, my dad couldn't always go, so he would send me. So I made a lot of connections that way, found out things I was interested in. And so through that, I ended up going to the University of Georgia. I majored in animal science and agribusiness. I also was the pre-vet because I feel like every ag kid considers it at
At
some
one
point.
point, we all want to be a vet.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that makes sense. We like animals. So
Right.
chemistry, though, said otherwise. And so I was like, ugh. So I changed my emphasis within animal science and added on the agribusiness. And then after my undergrad, I got my master's in agribusiness. While I was at Georgia, I participated in different things like a sorority, Alpha Gamma Delta, and then I did Block and Bridle, Dairy Science Club, Cattlemen's, all the things you can
Yep.
do. I also did a Congressional Ag Fellowship in Washington, D.C., so got to live for a summer on the Hill, which was pretty cool. And so then after that, I had interned during my grad program with Farm Credit. And so now I've landed working full time for Farm Credit as a credit analyst. And then I help my family on the dairy farm. And on my free time, which really doesn't exist, I drive the bus for the University of Georgia still. So
And do you do it for the sports team or who specifically for?
So I like during the week I'll pick up like the regular route system during the week, and then I'll pick up charters, which is like special events. So the football team, I've driven the field and track team, like high officials, like all kinds of people you can think of. I drove Drake Fromm one time, highlight of my life, I
That's
think.
the quarterback from Georgia a couple years ago for y'all
Oh,
non-UGA people.
Is that the milkman quarterback?
No, a different one.
No,
Okay,
different one.
sorry.
But he had
I
like
only know the
perfect
milkman.
teeth, so
Of course he did.
Yeah. Have you met Kirby Smart?
he has ridden my bus, yeah.
That's the coach for UGA, y'all, who's like, Ruben's obsessed with him.
Oh,
This is like such a fun fact.
yeah.
It's so random.
Yeah.
It's so
Surprise,
random.
this is a sports podcast now. We're going to talk about
The
UGA.
power of networking, though. Look at all these communities and connections you've built. That's so cool.
I know, it's crazy, and I'm so anxious to hear how you both answer this next question, because, I know both of you through either Dairy Girl Network or DGN, or which we also call DGN, or other dairy leadership programs, which is where I've done a lot of my networking. So I know you in that aspect, but the experiences you're both bringing to this conversation are so much bigger than that. So we'd love to hear why you feel it's so important for women to build a community and to get out there and to network within their industry, specifically we're dairy, but even beyond that. And then if you could help us visualize this by giving us an experience you've had, or a person you've met, or a relationship that you've made that's been pivotal at some point in your career or your life. So, Amanda, I want to hear from you first.
Yeah. So as I have like gotten older, right, and I'm still not even that old.
We're all grandmas.
Yeah, right. I feel like it sometimes, but
none of
the
you
age.
can even pretend to be old around me.
I'm still in my 20s, so.
Like, I'm pretty sure you're like 3 months older than me, but that's okay.
Fair enough. She's the patriarch of the group.
Right. But as I've like looked back and reflected on the opportunities that I've had, and kind of like what I was talking about in my intro, it's the people that have helped me or gotten me to where I am today. And honestly, it's been like intentional networking and unintentional, like community building too. So for example, looking back on my college days, again, a non-ag kid in an ag world, I ended up joining the Association of Women in Agriculture, which is a college group at UW-Madison, very similar to a sorority, but just a little bit different. But like getting to know your peers and giving back to the community and being involved in ag-related events were some big picture items besides like professional development. And a lot of the people that I met there, and at that time it was just like, this is fun friends and people that are in my classes and that we get along with, now are, movers and shakers in the industry that I have grown up with and have become intertwined with. And I don't know, as thinking about that has been really a big piece of like a networking success story for me. I also think it's really important for us to build connections and build that community because we all need cheerleaders. Like, life is hard. Like, life is hard. And whether that is like professional peers or our personal friends, and the social side of that, I think it's really important for us to have those connections and to be surrounded by people who understand our jobs or understand our industry or maybe understand our family dynamic. But at the same time, I also think it's important in those communities that we have diversified thoughts and we have, connections and communities that maybe aren't as intertwined with what we're going through, but their stories and their relationship to us can teach us a lot too. And my number one like networking success story is actually I got my job at Dairy Girl Network. DGN is what we have been calling it a lot. Is I got that job through networking. I was a little junior in college, and this upcoming dairy superstar, Laura Daniels, I had like such a girl crush on. I was like, wow, it is so cool that like this group is formed and it seems like all these influential people and they're just doing so many cool things. I had created a business card, and when I went to one of her talks for our AWA group, I like gathered up the courage because I have never done that before. I like gathered up the courage and went up to her and handed her a business card and said, "Hey, I'm doing some video work. I think what you're doing is really cool and I need some practice. So if you want some video stuff, like I'd love to help." And then like shook her hand, ran away.
Bye.
Like I got up that courage and I did the thing, and then I was out of there. And then lo and behold, I've been with Dairy Girl Network for 8 years now, and it has completely altered the path of my life and of what I do. And so getting up the courage to go talk to somebody and build that connection built my whole future and everything, a lot of connections I've gained from that. So that is my success story.
Yeah. And Amanda is being humble about the path she's carved with DGN too. I mean, you went from scared of Laura Daniels to now you're one of the people running, like steering the ship. And that's really cool. So I think that that's the beauty of networking in organizations like DGN, is that they provide such incredible leadership and growth opportunities and opportunities for you to just flex and blossom into what you can become.
Yeah.
Awesome. Katelin, what about you?
Well, I'm from a small town in Georgia, so Madison's not super big. My family lives in Bostwick, which is even smaller town outside of Madison, but we can't have Bostwick as our mailing address because they don't have a postal service that services homes. They have PO boxes, but like not
Small
ones
town
that like,
probs.
yeah, so we're still in a small town, but I grew up, it's a heavy ag town, and we're only an hour from Atlanta, which is hard to believe that's rural sometimes. But we're one of the top dairy counties in the state. I think we're ranked like 5 or 6. And so you would think that would be a lot of cool dairy kids, a lot of cool dairy background. But growing up, I didn't have a lot of dairy friends my age, or dairy, like the few kids that grew up on dairy farms here at the time coming through school with me were like boys, or they were a lot older, or they were a lot younger. So there were no real girls in dairy for me to really relate to at home. Now we did have a good like commercial dairy heifer program, which 4-H and FFA kids could be a part of. And so I made dairy friends that way, but they couldn't always relate to some of the things that I was going through on the farm at home, or some of the things that I wanted to be able to talk about or share. So 4-H and FFA helped me find some of those other friends, and showing you met people across the state of Georgia who were also involved in dairy. So how I met Monica was like showing cows, which
That's
is
the
Emily's
family I married
sister-in-law.
into. Yeah.
Yeah. And then doing Holstein, and different things like that. So I've always had that desire to know other dairy women because that was limited where I was. And so DGN offered some of the opportunities, so I was super excited when that opportunity became available. But it's definitely important to build those networking relationships too, because you never know where they'll take you, and you never know like where someone who crosses your path today may end up later. So like my boss here at Farm Credit, I grew up in church with as a kid. Like his
Oh, wow.
his kids are a year or two older than me, or a year or two younger than me. You just never know where those people, especially in ag, it's a small community, whether you like, it's a big community across the country and around the world, but it's still small. It's very tight knit. So people who in ag, you'll probably cross paths with more than once or make other connections later. So maintaining that has always been really neat for me. So Facebook is a really good tool to maintain all your friends in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. So like even like I went to a national 4-H dairy conference in high school. Loved it. Met several friends. Like I really bonded with the Minnesota kids, which like, we had a lot of voice differences and slang to discuss. So that was really neat. And so, like, you're like, oh, I probably won't see these people again. So there was a guy, his name was Michael. Michael and I became good friends. And, like, we would bump into each other at Holstein Convention or other programs throughout time. And so I later met Michael's sister, Katie. And so Katie and I have become good friends as well. And so Katie is actually, I think she's speaking at DGN this time, Katie Schmidt. And
Oh my
she's
God, she's
also
on my
in,
panel.
yeah, and she's also in YDLI with
Well,
me.
you were literally
So
just saying how, like, again, it's a big world, but so small,
I
right?
know, I
There's
was
so many.
racking my
Right.
brain like Katie.
I know, I was waiting for the last name. I was like, who's she going to talk about?
Yeah, I can see Amanda and I searching, ready, like, oh, we should know this. Nope.
But yeah, so those cool relationships, like you never know like where those will take you. And so like Katie and I were talking about YDLI and different things earlier. She's a big hiker. I'm not. And so I was like, we were talking about that earlier. But those kind of friendships build, which is really cool. So definitely like maintaining those friendships and those connections is super important as you go about through life for sure.
I love both of your viewpoints so much because, again, while you have different, experiences with an ag and growing up and such, you talk about different ways to create connections that people may not initially think of when we say networking, right? Because I think when we talk about networking, we automatically think of something so professional, which, yes, there are professional networking opportunities, but there's also just the opportunity to network every single day in every single experience, right? And it can start from as young as doing 4-H, FFA, right? You're not going into it thinking like, oh, this is for my future professional career, which maybe some kids are like, I know, I was like, I'm just doing this to do it.
Most kids are going for the free chocolate chip cookies and milk at the end of the 4-H meeting. Like, let's be honest.
100%.
Yeah, we had the best version of that ever. And probably what bribed us into doing a lot of things, which it all turned out well. But it reminds me also, Becca, of a conversation that just you and I had in one of our previous episodes about your corporate career of you mentioning, I can't remember the exact quote, but of just being kind to everyone,
nice.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You never know who's going to be in charge of your paycheck someday. Be nice to everybody.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like throughout everything that y'all have talked about, ultimately, it's about being kind and about kind of putting yourself out there, whether you are doing it for a specific reason or not. You just never know where that connection is going to come into play. Again, especially as women in ag, because Katelin, like you said, being rural can add a big obstacle into meeting people, or if it's Amanda, not growing up in dairy, that can add an obstacle into meeting people. And so you've both had such unique paths into kind of creating a community, whether that's close or, spread out across the country. And so with that, I would love to hear, and I feel like you've kind of chatted about it a little bit already, but what are 2 to 3 strategies that you have used to build meaningful connections within your personal life, within your career, or, anything kind of in between? So Katelin, let's start with you. What are your, pieces that have allowed you to get connected? Because I get to know you a little bit better now because, I'm married into a Georgia farm family. And
Right.
Just even from what I hear, I know that you are always very involved, and I'm always so inspired of how you do put yourself out there.
Well, it's not always easy. I can definitely say
Yeah.
that. And I feel like y'all can relate. Like, it's not always easy, especially when you're approaching other people or, like you said, putting yourself out there. Like, it can be a big vulnerability for sure. I think probably one of the biggest things that I would recommend to people is like, don't be afraid to start and don't be afraid to start small because that small seed can grow into something really big. So a lot of times when I'm meeting someone new or trying to make a new connection, my go-to, and this is probably just from growing up in Georgia and Georgia being a big state, was always like, oh, where are you from?
Yep.
So then immediately, not always a name drop, but always maybe, oh, you're from South Georgia? Like, did y'all grow up in an area with cotton? Did you grow up in an area with row crops? Oh, you're from Minnesota. Is it really cold up there? Like, it's a good way to open a conversation. Like geographics is, so that's one of my big strategies that I usually start with to help build a connection. And then you learn something in that process too. And then of course I always share like, I'm from a dairy farm and I love cows, even with people who are not cow people. Sometimes they're like, oh, that's weird. But then other times it can be really cool too. And you never know where you might end up. So fun fact, my family ended up on Family Feud one time because of some dairy stuff. So, wild times there.
Wait, and you also have to mention you literally you met Shaq last year, right?
You're just like a magic
Yes.
rabbit hat, like a magician's hat. You just like
Wow.
keep pulling out all these
queen
cool
hat.
Seriously.
I didn't know that was going to happen like that. Like, honestly, like, so we're not far from Atlanta, so a lot of opportunities kind of throw themselves out there sometimes. And so I used to also work for the Georgia Mobile Dairy Classroom, which is a really cool program as well. And they had these like, what's the word? So it was like a animal casting program. They were looking for animal castings, and they contacted Nicole, and she was like, I don't have a cow that's available for this. Contact Katelin. And then like 8 people tagged me in it on Facebook. So then I get like this thing. They're like, hey, we're looking for somebody with a milk cow who's able to lead on a halter that can be milked and can walk inside of a building. And I was like, well, shit, I got a cow that's perfect for that. So I emailed the guy and I was like, hey, like, everybody sent me your my contact info, like, been tagged on Facebook. Like, here's my cow. Her name's Rosie. She's a red and white Holstein. Here's some pictures of her. Like, let me know if you're interested. Thinking I would not hear from him.
Yeah,
Calls me the
right.
next day. He's like, yeah, he's like, for World Milk Day, we're like looking to have somebody come on stage and teach some like basketball people how to milk a cow on Inside the NBA. Me, like, I'm a football girly, so like basketball is like, okay, Inside the NBA, whatever. And they're like, so you're gonna be teaching like Shaq and Charles Barkley how to milk a cow. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I know those names.
Okay, they have calling them basketball people.
Yeah,
is
like
probably
the big
funniest. Is probably the funniest part of this whole story. Like,
Right?
they're Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley.
Right, it's wild. So then, like, we end up going, and so I teach Shaq and Charles Barkley how to milk a cow with my sister, and like, it was just a wild experience that you could have never expected. So then, get this is another fun like connection here. So the guy who did the casting for it calls me like a month later, and he's like, "Hey, never thought I'd need you again, but do you have a small calf that we can use for an ad? They're looking for." This company's looking for a calf that can be posed as like a yoga cow or something like that. And I was like, I mean, here's pictures of calves. Tell me what you like, like whatever. So he's like, oh, we love this one. Of course, her name's Sweet Tea, right? So it's super Southern. And so I was like, they were like, we want to come do a photo shoot at your farm with this cow. And I was like, okay, let me halter break her, but sure. So like they come out, they do this like ad, they take the pictures, like they spend all day. I'm like taming this cow with a honey bun, like so she stands still. It's the whole thing. And so then I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Like I'll never see the pictures, like, whatever. So I go to Holstein Convention this summer. They give us our little swag bag at the beginning, and I didn't really look through it all, but when I came home, I was going through it, and this ad falls out, and I was like, that's my freaking cow. Like, I was like, that's my cow on this ad. I was like, of course, I'm sending pictures to everybody. I'm like, look, it's my cow. And so then I didn't think anything else of it, and then Mariah from our YDLI group was like, wait, that was your cow when I was talking about it? She was like, I helped pick the pictures and the cows for the ad, and she's in California.
Yeah.
So, like, those connections, you never know. It's like full circle, which is kind of cool.
We have these monthly, Caitlin and I are on these monthly kind of like leadership development check-in calls, let's call them. And that happened. And I feel like there are 2 things that can come from those stories is that one, just like always speak up and always share or don't be afraid to share. Because like who would have known if you hadn't just been willing and engaged in that conversation with Mariah to be like, oh my God, my product ad uses your calf and we've known each other for how long now and had no idea. And then the other thing is I don't necessarily think it's always saying yes, but always being open and curious and like, okay, you might meet Shaquille O'Neal. You never know. So I feel like you've given just like the coolest advice for people who are networking.
Yeah, you just never know where something will lead. And I like how you said that, Becca.
Yeah.
You don't always have to say yes, but
it's not
just
always
be
a yes.
open.
It's like be open and curious to make an educated
you never know
no
where it
or educated yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Katelin, thank you for sharing the fun little tidbit. And Amanda, I'm not saying you have to top that, but
Man,
I would challenge your perspective.
What I have learned is connections can get me to meet Shaq. That is what I took away from
Any
that.
takeaway from Cowgirl Talk?
Right? No, but seriously, that is so cool. And that story about how that all came together and like a couple, down the line too. Ah, I love that. And what a cool experience. Um, Definitely a couple of strategies that I have, and Caitlin touched on this, and I just really want to reemphasize it, is like you can start small if you're opening a conversation. Like the whole where are you from and building off of that, that is not underrated. That is a great starting point, and you can build from there. Like you don't have to come in with some big grandiose question or something like really high level. Absolutely not. You can definitely start small, and I personally do that myself. Um, One thing that I do personally is these are so boring compared to Caitlin, so I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
I
I should have
love
let you
it.
go first.
No, absolutely not. But I'm a pretty social person, but when you would like put me in an actual like networking event or something like that back then, I would get so nervous.
I feel
And
that.
oh my God, I would put so much pressure on myself, and then I would, kind of doubt things sometimes, like, oh my God, I'm going to be too young here, or I don't maybe know everything. I'm not the best in my industry because duh, or the best at my job, and I would start having these like doubtful thoughts, in the beginning, and that it would just make me so nervous for these things. And so one of the things I started doing for myself was like actually hyping myself up. And
Yes.
yeah, so before, if it was like an actual like planned networking event or an event I was going to where I didn't know anybody and I like had to talk to strangers, um, I would just hype myself up. I would just, be kind to myself and literally talk to myself and be like, you got this, like no expectations, just go in, be you, see where it takes you. And, if you make connections, great. If you don't connect with anybody, did you really lose anything? No, you
That's right.
just go again next time. It's not like once you talk to somebody, they're stuck in your life forever. So
God, they're gonna follow me around.
forever and ever.
Yeah, you don't have to be like this person's best friend for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. It's like you're both seeing if there's a mutual way you can help one another. Like, is there a benefit to having you in my network and vice versa? And if
Yeah,
not,
It's
it's
a
and
not.
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. Exactly.
totally. And Becca, just as like you said earlier too, is like just be kind and like be yourself, and you can't go wrong there. So
Yeah.
that like hyping myself up is number one. Number two, I'm so bad with names. I'm so bad with names.
Name
Oh.
tags, the older you get, the more you
It's like, oh, thank God.
When there aren't name tags, I get so mad. I'm like, I'm not supposed to remember everybody's name, am I? Like, where's their name tag?
Yeah, there's no way. And especially like again, if it's like a formal networking event and I just met like 20 people or sometimes even more, I go home and I'm like, I couldn't tell you any of these people's names or bits about them. So a follow-up that I personally do to kind of help organize and make it so whatever those connections are, like stay together past that initial meeting, is if they gave me a business card, that is usually always what I ask for. Then I do go ahead and follow up and add them on LinkedIn, or if it's a little more personal, Facebook or something like that. Or I'll even shoot them an email. If I really, really know that I want to keep that contact like front of mind, I'll shoot them an email and just say, hey, it was awesome connecting with you, looking forward to staying connected. And then I'll put that sent email in a folder in my Gmail on different categories of either where I met someone or like what industry they're in or a specialty. If I think I may need to actually build that relationship even more sometime in the future. So that otherwise all these people just get jumbled around in my brain and they're gone forever.
I
That's so
love that
unorganized.
idea.
I know. I feel like Becca's gonna jump on that, be like, organization. Love that idea. And I'm like, that's so smart. I would never
Sounds
ever
like
think
more
of that.
work.
Yeah. I do I like the LinkedIn one because then you have a face, like you're reminded of, oh, okay, that's what they looked like. But I have never done I've heard people use that email trick, and I really like it. And this was a good reminder to do that.
That is very clever. And I love how you both used kind of personal experiences and strategies that you've used. But I even think for kind of the main theme almost is putting yourself into rooms or into, places with people who have similar interests. I know you said earlier, Amanda, it's so helpful to build a diverse network, which yes, is extremely beneficial. But also if knowing that like, hey, I just want to meet people who have a similar interest to me, just putting yourself into those situations, right? Like you said, we don't have to become besties with everyone. We may not even come out of there with any connections, but just getting into a room with people who have somewhat similar interests or ideas or, paths can lead to maybe some unexpected connections, and just being willing to do so. I know that's so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I feel like I can be a bubbly, outgoing person, but then like you said, Amanda, like put me in a room where I know no one. It's like, oh my God, this is terrifying.
Well, like,
but
it's
just doing it.
It's networking is socially exhausting because you have to be on, or you feel like you have to be on the whole time, and you're very cognizant and aware of who you're being versus I'm going to hang out with friends. If I slip up, whatever, it doesn't matter.
I say the F word in front of them. It's like, oh shit.
Or when I say something like really ridiculous, it's like, oh, why did I say that? And I think another thing, that you've touched on indirectly is setting expectations of why you're there. And, is this a situation that requires a lot of pressure, like a career fair? Yeah, I've got to find a job versus I have the chance to go meet a bunch of women who love cows. Like, the expectation is that I at least meet one unique person, or I, just have fun tonight. Like that, it can literally be as simple as that. And I think you've already started to talk about this, but I'd be curious, each of you, like, what do you find is your main challenge as a woman in agriculture, related to networking or not? And then how does having this community of women that you've built through networking help you overcome that?
Ooh.
Yeah. And I think, Katelin, go.
Sorry.
You go first.
I was going to say, I want to piggyback off of what you said, though. Like, I feel like when I go into, like, group settings with expectations is when I struggle more, honestly. So, like, sometimes I have to be like, just go. Like, don't have an expectation. Like, just go. If you don't meet anybody, great. But if you do meet people, great. Like, when I put expectations on it, then I'm like, oh my God, I said the wrong thing. Like, oh my God, like, for me, that doesn't work as well. So I have to like go into things a little more, okay, I'm going to get a drink at the bar and just walk around. And if I find somebody cool, like if I don't, I go back to my room, like, so, but when I put an expectation, I guess what I'm trying to say is it slows me down from being myself and being as honest and like easy and open with people. So I think there's benefits to both sides of it. Like some people will really relate to having an expectation or like, a goal, but other people, it may not always work quite as well.
Yeah. I feel like not having an expectation is setting an expectation in itself. It's like, you know what I mean?
That's fair. Yes.
I mean, but it's like, you know what? I like how you're phrasing it of, I'm going in here just to go in and to see what happens.
To be authentic.
Yeah, it's like there's no checklist for me. There's no agenda for me. I'm going in because I feel like it, or because you know what, something might happen, something might not.
Right.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
There's a lot of different challenges, I guess, that you can face with like trying to meet new people. And, for me, it's like, I'm like Amanda. I get in my head sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to meet new people. I'm going to be weird. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to be overdressed. I'm going to be underdressed. Like, oh my God. So, yeah. So I typically go with the Southern rule of like overdress versus underdress. Like, it's always better to be overdressed. So, I try to do that, but sometimes I still struggle with that too, especially like, I'm not even going to lie. When like I'm around Monica or Emily, I'm like, God, I look like a frumpy potato. And they're
Monica, my sister-in-law Monica, if you're listening, Monica, she probably needs to catch up on some episodes, but I don't know, she always looks so cool. And I'm like, dumb.
She does. She does. She walks in and it's like kind of annoying. You're like, why?
I know, like,
why
oh,
are you,
she looks so cool.
why are you so perfect?
Right. And like, here I am in my like tennis shoes. Oh, cool. Like, so sometimes that's hard for me. So I try to go with the overdressed policy, but it's not always perfect. I also struggle with, I have a potty mouth sometimes. So in a professional setting,
girlfriend.
that can be a challenge too, especially when I'm working with children or doing the Adopt a Cow program stuff. I'm like, oh, we got to like settle that down. Or when I'm chaperoning 4-H things, like, that's hard. And so sometimes even chaperoning 4-H things, like it's a challenge for me because I want to be a good influence and a good role model for these kids. And so going into new settings and showing them how to meet people, even when I'm struggling with some of the other things, can be tough too. So I try to like find a safe space or find a safe person maybe at the event to be like, oh, hey, let me introduce you to this person first if you know they're going to be there, or let's do this together once you bump into somebody at the door, on the bus, whatever. I met a lot of my college friends and roommates like as a passenger on the bus, like
Yeah.
different things. I met a friend last year at DGN on the bus and we still Snapchat and talk regularly, like different things. So there's definitely challenges, but if you go into it slow and with like some groundwork, or some ground ideas of what makes you feel safe, I definitely think that helps those situations.
I like that.
Dang.
Amanda, how about you?
Ditto.
Yeah. Copy paste.
Man. Yeah, copy paste for sure. But no, those are all really, really good things that I also work through. The no expectations thing, I really love that. One that is kind of in that ballpark is sometimes, and this will be definitely more in like a professional setting or when I'm, working in the industry rather than more of a social, casual networking, is sometimes I really get in my head and I end up like I'm not active listening to them. I'm just listening and I'm trying to think of what I want to say next.
Oh,
I
so
do that too.
yes, you're listening to react.
Yes, and I am like aware of that, and that's something I'm actively working on. But that is one of my biggest downfalls in some of those settings is I'm so nervous that I want to like say the right thing, or just get the conversation flowing and make sure it's not awkward or something. That I'm like also while I'm listening to them thinking in my head and hearing my own voice being like, oh well, maybe I can connect that to this and then that. I'm like, no. Like we said earlier, just being your authentic self and like it's also like okay to like take that breath to actually think about what you want to say next then. Like if there's that little lull in the conversation, that is not bad.
Literally
Right.
what you just described is what I feel this entire interview. Is like just because you also get so excited.
Like, I gotta get that good thing in there.
Yeah, and you want to keep it going and you don't want to lose something. So that's a skill that is really, really difficult. So I feel you on that. For sure.
Yeah.
And I think even being your authentic self is difficult too, like you want to set a good impression, you want to say the right things, but I have to try and like remind myself if they don't like me as I am, they're probably not meant to be in my circle anyway. So that's something I try to remember too. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, I know we can all relate to it. And I was trying to make sure I'm like, all right, let's make sure I'm listening and not just thinking of the next best thing that I want to say. And I'm just sitting here like,
it's
so
funny though, because literally as we're doing this, I was sitting here thinking to myself like, wow, Becca and Emily do such a good job.
Oh my God, stop.
Listening
really?
and like adding the next question and like I was impressed. So whatever you guys are doing too, like bravo, great moderators.
It's like a little compartment back here of if there you know what though, it's like if there's not a space for that, I'm just gonna go on to the next thing and forget it. So I feel like that's another thing is there's always going to be something to respond to or interact with or engage with. If you just let the person finish, they're honestly probably going to get to something even better than you coming in at that point that you might be held up on.
Yeah, the conversation will go where it needs to go. And I think for my take on this, I have a little bit of a different take outside of networking, but we know that agriculture, as a lot of industries still are very male dominated, which, it's that's fine. There's a lot more women getting involved, but even still, I know sometimes we've all probably dealt with some frustrating circumstances of maybe being the sole woman in that organization or in that event or in that situation, and sometimes it can just cause us to feel a little bit frustrated, a little bit fed up. And then you add in just the different side of things that women have to deal with of, again, just being a woman is very different than being a man. And if maybe it's relationships or feelings, or if it's becoming a mom, whatever it is, that's not always something that you can talk about to other males, whether that's even like personal relationships, or of course, probably not within your professional relationships either. And so that's where I think it is so important to be able to find that community to talk about other things that you may feel very isolated on. It, I think it even goes to show, like, us being able to have these, oh, I hear Becca's dog. Oh, it's okay, sorry. She just distracts me. But again, I even think how you can see within this conversation how we can all relate to so many things just goes to show the power of community and finding that right network for you to be able to talk about whatever situation may be, kind of bugging you within life. And so for both of you, I would love to hear, for the dairy women listening to this, and again, it could be any industry, but specifically as we are within dairy, and as we're talking about how great networking is, if they're not listening to this and wondering, okay, well, how the heck do I now get more involved? How do I cultivate more of these relationships that y'all keep talking about? Where the heck do they start, Amanda?
Dun, dun,
It's
dun.
like,
Put you on the spot.
dun, dun,
What is
dun.
she gonna say?
Yeah, surprise, surprise. A really good place to start is Dairy Girl Network, DGN.
Woo!
I mean, it's in the name. I'm pretty sure I met all three of you through Dairy Girl Network.
Yeah.
Which is all wild and at very different times too, which I just absolutely love. But DGN is a really great place to start. They have in-person networking events around the country, but I also think it's important that we build community not in person too, and connections that way. And especially too, as women are listening and as we're thinking about them, like, our dairy farming gals might not be able to, get off the farm and make it to an in-person event. They might not be able to travel who knows how many hours or thousands of miles to make it to something in person, especially if they're running a farm and raising a family and who knows what else we're all doing in our chaotic lives. So I think online community and building connections that way is also important. So DGN does have a pretty vibrant online community on Facebook called Exchange. And that's a really great place to start. I mean, there's a lot of awesome conversations happening in there, but it's also a really safe space to just open up a conversation too, whether it's something professional, like I'm looking for a new technique for calf feeding or a new product for this, or it's just like, hey, what are y'all making for dinner for my corn silage harvest group? Like, super casual. But another really good one, and actually, I believe and Katelin, this is where I met you both, is the Dairy Girl Network National Conference.
Woohoo!
Woo, woo, woo.
We're so excited.
I know. It's only like 2 months away, less than that now, which is like crazy. But truly that conference, that was my first Dairy Girl Network event way back in the day, besides Expo. And truly that conference, like, it's about education and having top-notch speakers there, but community and networking are really like two of the major factors. And so we really do try to like intertwine that into everything at the conference. And honestly, whether that is you're going to a session and learning and maybe connecting to that speaker to ask additional questions, or you're sitting at a table with some gals you've never met before, and you can talk that way. Or maybe it's a little more formal when we actually do have like more formal networking breaks and you're walking around, like you said, Katelin, with a drink and just trying to figure out, where you can pop in and start a conversation with someone. Or if you're walking around the showcase trade show and you talk to a new company and meet an industry rep, who knows what type of relationships can be built there, but there's a lot of opportunity. And the same goes for like the virtual option as well. We still make that really interactive. So if you can't travel to Kansas City this November, you can still join online and interact with individuals and companies and build your community that way as well. Um, it's definitely an event surrounded around networking and building your connections, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, and you'll get to work out with me if you go. Well,
Heck yeah.
I'm not going to force you guys to work out, but I host morning workouts. And yeah, I went to my first one in 2020, which it was the hybrid one because COVID kind of shut down the world.
Yeah.
But even then, it was
crazy.
such a blast. And it wasn't even in full capacity. And then I got to attend my first full DGN conference in 2022. And I know Katelin went as well. And it's just so much fun. I mean, how often do you get the chance to be surrounded by that many women who are all interested in similar things that you can have such impactful conversations? Because again, virtual options can be great, like you said, Amanda, for people who can't make in-person things. But if you can't make something in person, you don't often get an opportunity like that. And that's why I think, Katelin, your story is so cool, because 2 years ago at the 2022 conference, you kind of went like solo, right? And you're like, I'm just going to go and see what happens.
Yeah.
Right. It was a whole like Dove chocolate cliche, like book the flight, like open the wrapper. I was like, I had been interested in it, like seeing the stuff on Facebook and getting the emails. And then I know Brittany Snyder through the Adopt a Cow program. And so
Yeah.
she was like, I'm going, you should go. And I was like, we've never met in person, but okay, like, sure, whatever. And she was like, you can room with me. I was like, we've never met in person. Like, like it's just different. And I was like, okay, you know what? I opened the chocolate and I was like, all right, I'll book the flight. I'll go. And it ended up being a really neat opportunity. Also, I'm usually the person who's always late to everything. So, oops. But this time at DGN last time, I think my flight was early, and so I got there early. And so this could also be a strategy too, is like to lend a helping hand. Because I walked up to like the registration and they're like, we're not ready. Like, we don't even have name tags in the little like clear plastic things. And I was like, do you want help? Like, I'll be happy to like stick names in there and put them in alphabetical order. And so like I met people that way. I think that's where I met you, Amanda. And then this year I got put on the hospitality committee like to help with some of that again. So lending a helping hand is definitely a really cool way to get involved. And you really meet some neat people that way. Even if it's just like, can I grab the door for you? You never know where that might go, for sure. And so definitely I would say, book the flight. Don't be afraid to try the opportunity. Like, my whole thought was like, if this conference like sucks, I'm just gonna go like do like some ice skating or go to the mall, like do my own little vacation thing. Like, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen in Minnesota, but it could be cool. Like, it actually wasn't cool at all. It was warm there. I was ready to get away from the heat, and it was like, no. But definitely start small. Like, even if it's just like you don't know where to get involved, like I also recommend local extension programs. Our extension here where I live is great, and they're always like, we have this meeting coming up, we have this opportunity coming up, like we have this like session where you can come and listen about like methane digesters, or you can come listen to how cotton defoliant works. Like, even going to those things that like aren't related to dairy, I've learned and met some really cool people. So definitely like be willing to try something, even if it's small, even if it's out of your comfort zone, if it's out of your knowledge range. Like, it's a really cool way to meet people. So definitely my advice is just start. You never know. And the whole like Nike, just do it,
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Swoosh.
I feel like that was a great piece of advice from Katelin to end on, because I know, and I'm sorry if you guys are watching it, my dog is in her witching hour.
Her ass is all up in the screen.
Her beautiful butthole is all over the screen right now. If you know,
pretty graphic over
if
here
you,
now.
oh my gosh, tell me you haven't seen that Instagram video.
Yeah, it's a pug. He's
Fancy
butthole.
Look at my fancy
look at my
butthole.
phone.
It's not fancy.
Phoebe just wants to network too. She wants to be involved.
Yeah.
Seriously. And she's so pissed that you took her toy.
What was squeaking?
I mean,
here's
I enjoyed
my
it. And then when you're like straightening the computer, I was laughing. I was
Oh,
like,
'cause
OMG.
she knocked her head against the thing I have this on. Oh my god, she's so annoying. Okay, so just the toy.
Get out of here.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, the conference and getting to do things like the last thing I want to say about events like that, whether it be the DGN National Conference or Farm Bureau.
Hold on, everyone. Pause.
This is real, authentic selves. This is real life.
It just gives you an opportunity.
Becca just threw a pillow
You
at
know
her.
what? We're scrapping it. It's an amazing conference. We've all gotten amazing opportunities out of it. You know, Katelin meeting new people, taking the leap of faith, and then you've brought an entirely new element to the conference with the health and
Yeah, it's my
wellness
first
and
time
movement.
hosting live workouts.
Yeah,
too.
and that was something we didn't have before at it. Was that piece? But then you know what? You got involved, you networked, and we saw your strengths and your powers, and it's like, okay, this is a really cool thing to add to the conference. I know one time I drunkenly told Laura, I wish conferences gave me an opportunity to shop at really cool boutiques, or what if we, you know, helped women's businesses thrive in a instead of just a boring old trade show. Like, this is for women. Let's do things that women like to do, and it's supporting other women and buying cool like things. We like to shop. So I was given the opportunity to lead the showcase, and that's what's amazing when you network in organizations like DGN, that they see you, and you know, if you're being your authentic self, they see you and your strengths, and then they provide opportunities for you to do them. And that's what I'm so excited for the conference again this year in Kansas City, which is an amazing location for people who like agriculture. It's just
And
such a
football.
cool place. Well, yeah, we're gonna stay in the Taylor Swift hotel. I don't know. Taylor Swift probably doesn't
Okay,
actually stay
anyone
at a
who was
hotel.
on the fence, you just got sold.
That's
We're
your
there.
selling point.
Yeah, there's a game Monday night before the conference. So.
Yeah, so the dates are November 5th through the 7th, or Tuesday to Thursday. And yeah, that Monday, November 4th, there's a Chiefs football game home.
Yeah.
It's against the Buccaneers, too. So I'm in Florida. So I'm kind of not really Bucs fan, but so excited.
Still cool though.
So
Still
fun.
really cool.
We'll put also all the details will be in our show notes. So if y'all are like, this sounds so cool, or you just want to hang out with us, because yes, we will all be there. I know. Don't get too excited. But we will all be there. We'll put all of the information, the registration link, all of that in the show notes. And Amanda, is there anything else in the signing up portion that you would love to talk about? It's easy peasy, I know.
Yeah, easy peasy. You basically just go to dairygirlnetwork.com, and you'll see conference stuff everywhere that'll lead you to register. It'll take you just a couple of minutes. And then I just think some important things to know is we do have a room block, so you can get discounted rooms that is going to end in early October. And so, you know, get your conference registration in and then book that hotel room so you don't have to worry about anything else and you get the best rate. It's a super affordable hotel too, which is really awesome. And Kansas City is such a cool place, so we're really excited to be there.
I was going to say, I'll add too, I tried to book mine on the block the other day, and I couldn't get it to work online, and I called, and they're like, oh, we'll just add a room for you, and added more to the block. So if you have issues, don't be afraid to call them.
Perfect.
Love that. So I feel like ultimately what we've all taken away from this conversation is surround yourself with women who want to see you win. Put yourself out there. Don't get scared to do it. And you don't have to say yes to everything, but open yourself up to opportunities, because you never know where they're going to lead. And also, again, be nice and be kind. And I know that quickly we can move on from it then. But the DGN conference, if you're coming solo like Katelin did, you're always going to find someone who is there to welcome you and talk to. You're never going to feel outcasted or anything like that. It's just a really welcoming environment, and I'm so stoked to travel to it. And speaking of traveling, okay, so we usually do our weekly hot take obsession. This is kind of a combination of the two, but it is, what is your favorite travel hacker product? And I'm going to ask Becca first because she was super excited to have this as our question because she has some fun little ones. So Becca, give us your hacks.
Ooh, okay, I'll start and then probably interrupt all of you whenever you inspire me to share more things that I have. But some of my recent ones are I have a cute little mini lint roller that I keep in my purse, if it's in a purse or a backpack. So I have that. I have my Tide pen, and then I always have my Lumify eye drops. So those are like my 3 get it together really quickly items of, okay, I've got to dust myself off, or I have a stain, because the more nervous I am, the more likely I am to spill shit all over me, especially coffee from hotels. Like, I always do it, and I always wear white, so I put myself in this position. And then the Lumify eye drops, for some reason in hotels, my eyes look like I'm on crack. Like, I'm cracked out. My eyes get so red. I don't know why. Who knows why. So those Lumify eye drops always help, because then I'm not self-conscious that someone's looking at me like, is she on drugs? During my conversations with them. So those 3 things make me feel more confident and secure going into conversations on things that, like, honestly make me a little self-conscious.
Ditto on that. And I would only add to that floss strips, because if I have something in my teeth, it will bother me for the rest of my life. So that's just a random thing. I always have them in my backpack. I really feel like I don't have any other fun hacks that are unique or anything. So that's mine. Floss picks, because I cannot have shit in my teeth.
Miniature proteins and greens. So I feel like your travel hack
That's
is
fitting.
the health and nutrition aspect of it.
Yes. Okay. So, yes, I will take little, and it's not because you always have to be spot on or anything, but with traveling, you never know what nutrition opportunities you're going to have, right? Or what food options will be there. And for me, I love flexibility. I love to eat good food, but I also like to make sure that I do get in a good amount of protein. It just makes me feel better. So yeah, if you are traveling and you're like, I can't deal with being hangry, because that is me, I travel with little protein sample packs, and I use Bomar Nutrition often because they have a lot of great sample packs. I think sometimes I'll take greens or even electrolytes. So whether you're doing my workout or you've had too many drinks, those are some of the things that I like to travel with. Again, not to keep anything perfect, but just to make sure I'm fueled and ready to go so I can network my ass off with everyone.
Hey, yo, and to go with the, like, staying healthy and awake and alert, to network your ass off, another one I do is I always make sure when I'm traveling, I pack, daily vitamins or emergency or zinc, just to make sure, because I'm totally one of those people, especially on planes, I'll just pick up whatever is floating around. And so I really try to, like, give my body its best fighting ability then if I know I'm going to be traveling that way. I love this question because I am, like, such a travelholic. I love road tripping, flying, all that. Younger me would have said my favorite travel hack was sleeping in airports.net, because I would get cheap tickets to fly anywhere, and a lot of times I'd usually end up spending a night or, like, part of a night in an airport. And this fun website, like, literally tells you, like, the tips and tricks of every single airport. Where's good places to sleep, what lounges are 24 hours. I'm not that wild anymore, and I usually get a hotel room because my body can't handle that quite anymore. So my current me hack is I always travel with a deck of cards. I just feel like whether you're traveling alone or with someone, obviously if you're with someone, if you get a layover, a detour, or you're driving, you stop at a brewery for dinner or whatever, a deck of cards and playing a game is always, like, a lighthearted, fun thing. I've even, like, struck up some games with strangers if I was traveling alone in an airport and we got delayed. And then also, not to toot DGN's own horn, but we get some killer swag in our swag bags for our events.
Confirmed.
And we had this little, like, heck, I don't even know what the name of it was, but it's this little, like, dongle that has, like, every type of little charger cord.
It's like a charger keychain.
Yeah. And it's super small, but it has USB, USB-C, iPhone, like all sorts of that. So as long as you can plug it into something, you can charge any of your devices with that one little thing. And that is a lifesaver.
Well, because it has a USB cord and then all of the other charging plugins. And then it's built in a way that, like how a lot of bags have a key fob or like a key hook that you can just, it's always in my backpack. So no matter what, I know I always have the right charger because, you know, Apple, with every new product, you have a new charger. So
never know.
Yeah. We give away great swag.
I'm excited to get another one because I don't know where my other one went. Yay!
Me either. I was thinking that too.
I'm like,
noted. I'll bring a couple extra.
Thank you. Appreciate you. I guess like backpacking off Becca, worried about looking like she's on drugs. I'm packing drugs. I am a sensitive tummy girl.
Just confirmed. Thank you.
Sensitive tummy girl, always have the Dramamine. On flights, car rides, if I get stuck in the back of an Uber, I get the non-drowsy or the kids because you can chew it. I also have Tylenol or Excedrin wherever I go. Another big thing I always try to take, which I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, I always try and take cash because I've been where they were like, oh, your card's out of state or your card's out of, range. We cut it off. I'm like, great. So I always try to at least take $20 wherever I'm going. And then my favorite travel hack, that I've done at different conferences, I've done it at World Dairy Expo, DGN, I've done it at chaperoning children to Southeast Dairy Youth Retreat. I hate having to pay ungodly amounts of money for a drink, like a water or a Gatorade or a Sprite, and I'm a big water drinker, so I always Uber a case of water to my hotel room when I get there.
Smart.
That's brilliant.
Look at you go.
Smart.
It's great.
I love that.
Very clever.
Ugh.
Don't tell Ruben that hack. He never listens to this, so he won't know. But he loves bottled water, so watch out.
Obviously, you see me like this half the time.
That's clever.
Yeah, it's great, especially when you're chaperoning kids and they're like, I have $20 and I just spent it all on Cheez-Its and a Mountain Dew at 12 p.m. or midnight. And I'm like, no, kid, here's a water.
Get rid of the sugar high.
Right.
I like it. We have a nice variety of travel hacks and travel products, but I feel like that's such a fun way to wrap up this conversation, as I always just get, again, you can see me if you're watching, so I just smile the whole time because I have so much fun having these type of conversations. But it's so cool that there are so many opportunities out there to connect with badass women in or out of dairy, right? And so I'm just so excited that we get to have this conversation, hopefully inspire more women to invest in themselves, invest in their networking and their relationships. And, we'll all get to see each other soon. So I'm just very excited for all of that. And thank you both so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank y'all for having us and doing such a great job with the cow talks and connecting the dairy girls for sure. I'm super excited to see all y'all in a few months.
Yay!
Yeah, this was fabulous. And just like you, Em, if you guys have been watching, I've been smiling so much that I literally just popped my AirPod out of my ear because my cheekbones have just been up the whole time.
I heard a little like parent trap. I can't hear you in the closet. That's what it sounded like.
Yep, the cheekbones are cheekboning and the pop the AirPod right out, or the AirPod right out.
I know. I need to stop smiling. But yes, thank you so much, ladies. And as always, y'all can find us on all social medias, Cowgirl Talk. And if you enjoyed this, leave a review. You can subscribe, follow the show, all of the good things. But thanks for listening, y'all.
And as always, have a great day. Oh, God. Have a great day, Cowgirls.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.